Okay, y'all. Um, and sorry it is crooked. Unless you stand to the side.
We're actually crooked though. It's the
Okay.
We're
camera's straight. We're
crooked.
just
That's because we're running for office in November, but we're getting crooked early.
Okay, good, good. Okay, so I have a way of fixing this. Just a moment, I'm gonna do that. We don't have any viewers at this second, or
oh, that's perfect.
All right.
so you what?
It's perfect.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so
Weebles wobble, but they got nothing on Wobblies.
woo! So um, Charles, competing for services, the X Games of homelessness.
The X Games, Homeless Survivor. Um, it's not promoted as a competition. Although you have to wonder if maybe there's a capitalist theme under there. But the simple truth is if you want a place to keep your stuff overnight, you can only get that on Monday. You have to remember it happens on Monday at TPI, and you have to make sure you kept your $5 over the weekend. And you can't be past the 13th person in line because only the people who line up at 6 o'clock in the morning, rain or shine, are going to be close enough to the front to have a place to store their belongings. And various service providers have different levels of rain protection, so that if it's raining and you want to eat the hot meal they're providing, uh, you know, warm hot meals, I guess, are cherished even more by people who've been standing in line in the rain for 30 minutes. Um, so whether you get adequate nutrition may be related to, you know, whether you develop the skill of acquiring umbrellas or being willing to endure a soaking. Um, I think the saddest part is the hypocrisy of the people who are involved in, whether you want to call it the plan to end homelessness or just basic human services, because they know that there's only a certain number of beds, some of which have 12-hour lockdown strictures attached to them.
What is a 12-hour lockdown stricture?
Well, if you want a bed at City Team, say, and I'm sure it's similar at other places, you have to be there by 5 o'clock in the morning. Excuse me, 5 o'clock in the evening, maybe 6, and you have to give 12 hours of your day to that place. You can't have an evening interaction. Sometimes you can maybe schedule one, pull some strings, play a political game with the staff, and go out and go to the library from 6 to 8, or attend a civic function. But usually the plan is come into the supporting care facility, don't leave for 12 hours or you won't be allowed to sleep there the next day, or something along those lines.
Why
Uh,
would they wait a minute? Now I've heard of places where if you want a bed, you have to be there at 5 or at 7, and then you stay there, or you would lose your space. But I've never heard that you had to stay there for a full 12 hours. This is
well, it's
bizarre.
just the way it works. I mean, if you come in for dinner at 5 o'clock and they wake you up and kick you out of the building, it's like, we're absolutely determined that since you took this bed, you should stay in it till dawn, but not too much after dawn because you should be out, you know, looking for work or whatever. Depends on your situation. Um, but there's not a lot of work looking that can be done between 6 and 8 in the morning. But uh, so now different places are more sensible or supportive, like the beds in the basement of the uh, Bud Clark Folly uh, let you stay. You don't have to return to claim your bed until 10 o'clock. So if you go to the library till 8, if libraries will ever be open past 8 o'clock, maybe they won't even be libraries past 6 o'clock by the end of by the time the budget is
Yeah,
really
yeah,
scrutinized.
right on. Oh
But
man.
so, some places have different, you know, standards, but there's, speaking of competition, it's a lot of endurance. If you go to TPI and you're like, for whatever reason, I'm not going to do this rescue mission, Union Gospel Mission, City Team, those are the primary ones for men, single men. Uh, there is the TPI, mysteriously funded TPI shelter program, um, which has a wait list of like 4 months. And if you don't check in every week, your 4 months starts over. It's not always 4 months. It depends on different factors, but
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I get bogged down with hassles. I get beaten down with hassles. But this is just ridiculous, and it's on top of people who lead need the least hassles. You got full-time survivor, and what I keep hearing from people is, oh, you could go to a shelter, and first of all, I'm always like, you first, and then you can say that. So let's just say Gary Crane, the building manager here from across the street in City Hall, who says, well, they could go to a shelter if they wanted to. You guys just prefer to bother us here, or whatever. Um, he asked me why I said, you first, then tell me that people can go to a shelter. So, Charles, do you have any reason that maybe Gary Crane would find it difficult to just sleep in a shelter? Do you know this?
Well, I mean, I don't know about Gary Crane, but I know for a lot of women, the shelters are completely unsafe. Um, Largely because some of them like won't take them because of the sort of like co-ed sort of thing, but also because um, when you go into a situation like that, I know a lot of women who won't even go to shelters to eat, let alone stay the night, because it's an incredibly unsafe environment as far as the lurking about of sexual predators looking for vulnerable people to prey upon. Um, and that's just one example.
Yeah, Mo told
And
us that she's been followed for days once she went to get some food at wherever, Sisters of the Road or
Right.
somewhere that you could get a nice meal. They waited and stalked her, and it happens multiple times. So
Yeah,
unsafe
that
for
cost is too high.
women or for people who are vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine some men.
Certainly.
So, okay. So there's one reason that Gary, or maybe his daughter, let's say if he has a daughter or son, might not be comfortable. What's another?
Well, the primary thing is, and I guess this is maybe why Gary's not in the city audit department, the city accounting department. I mean, it's simple mathematics. Uh, if there's 4 or 5 programs that offer, let's just talk about single men because that's the one I can speak to most from my experience. There's 4 or 5 programs total that offer beds for single men, and each program has 100 beds. That's 500 beds, and there's 1,000 homeless men. So obviously, once those 500 beds are full, which they're full every day, that's where people, that's why there are people. Certainly, there are people who don't ever go to get a shelter bed because they find that type of life too restrictive. But it doesn't matter because if they went and got in, it would just displace somebody else. That's one of the reasons that I usually don't go, in addition to not liking the curfew things. It's like I feel comfortable and adapted to dealing with sidewalk living. So when I don't go to a shelter, that opens up a bed for somebody who feels like that's the constructive situation for them.
Okay.
So the thing that really is, to me, disgusting about the situation with the city and the new Home Forward former housing department is that, well, I just discovered that the United States Customs House, when I walk by it, the doors inside say Portland Police. So it looks like the city owns thousands of unused square footage, thousands of feet of square footage that are not used and are up to code, but are not used to provide services to citizens of the city. So, and that doesn't even talk about unused space that's in private hands. So, although some other large cities don't have municipal programs, um, it really is a responsibility of the government to implement a solution, whether it's through, as other people prefer, uh, AmeriCorps volunteers or something like that. Um, what we're doing is not really a solution. It's an emergency, improvised measure that people like us can come up with the resources that we have, um, but the city has resources that it hides or misrepresents.
Right, and Jim Roberts was here talking about some of that, some of where the money went, some of the crimes that went on. It was a fascinating interview, and he did it a couple of times. So, what Charles is talking about, we can get more information if you watch Interview with Jim. So, another thing is head lice sometimes and stuff like that.
Staph infection.
Staph infections. Okay. Um, I've had people say, if you want to stay alive, stay out of the shelter. They were talking about, and some people are paranoid about TB, even though most of them make you have shots to get a TB card. Do you think that there's a risk of getting TB or a fatal illness?
I'm pretty optimistic about my own immune system and my own ability, but I definitely understand people's concerns. I would definitely say that minor non-life-threatening things are thrown in. I mean, uh,
Fungus,
yeah,
bed
fungal
bugs,
infections, bed bugs,
lice.
lice crabs, head
Does that
lice.
happen? Do
Yes,
people
Yeah,
get that
it
from?
shingles,
happens.
I'm sure.
Uh, you know, uh, and I think there's some. It, we talked about the struggles that homeless people face. For example, what do you do if you're staying in a shelter program and you've been celibate and had no intimate contact with anybody, and all of a sudden you have crabs? Do you complain to the management, who's of course going to insist that, oh, you must have gotten them through some kind of second-rate sexual activity, or is there even any solution? Are they even going to provide you with a treatment shampoo or a natural cure? So it's definitely a just one more stressor that keeps these people marginalized and at risk.
Yeah, and if you
And
haven't
not
seen
these people,
somebody
because
walk
I'm one of
around
these
with
people.
crabs or bed bugs, they're in
Yeah.
misery. They're in misery. And there's a stigma too. So if somebody has crabs and they're itchy, um, and they say, "Oh, I got this at a shelter because I tried to stay the night," nobody's gonna frickin' believe them. They're just gonna judge. People are very, very judgmental. So I mean, it's like a silent. I mean, this is if you could just imagine the kind of prejudice. It's just makes me upset. Anyway, back to not being upset. So what other reasons would somebody like Gary Crane not want his daughter or son in a shelter, for example?
Well, it's not. It's it's innately stressful because it's not the style of living that certainly, especially Americans, are trained to survive in. It's if we took you know Gary Crane and put him in a shelter or in a shanty village, which we often deride the third world that, oh, look at Rio, they have all these people living in shacks on the side of the hill. Well, that's because in Rio it's less common for the fascist police to come and tear down the improvised shelters that poor people have put up to protect themselves. So uh, there's a number of reasons, health related, mental health related, uh,
So do people
ability to
yell at
succeed.
you in shelters?
The staff, they're in a high stress situation. So yeah, there's a lot of tension. We spoke a little bit earlier about the competitive nature. So, as Americans, we grow up, almost all Americans, except for a few, with a private shower of whatever duration your water heater will support is like considered, a constitutional right. Not going to happen if you're a sheltered person. Um, we're fortunate in some places that they even give, at least 20 minutes, but sometimes other situations it's less private. Um, and, we really have to decide as a country, can we really convince ourselves that it's all the fault of these people that they're in this situation? And even if it is their fault, many people want to talk about how we're a Christian nation or founded on godly or biblical principles, and none of that really seems to measure up with the situation as far as how we treat houseless individuals.
Well, do you think that we should invite folks to give it a try for a night?
I mean, definitely people who work in that field should.
No, I mean people who
And people, yeah, if
of
you're
authority who tell us go to a shelter. Like you guys are just doing this because you're whatever. Go to a shelter. I feel like if you're going to impose that belief on someone, that they should try a night in the shelter. And I'm wondering if they're going to be able to handle it, because it sounds like it's its own skill to deal with.
and there's also the big problem of spin. I think that, and this is something actually a challenge that's put before us as houseless people. It's like you can't be. There's very little ability for you to be constructively critical of the situation because you're dependent. You're extremely dependent on these people. If the services are useful to you, even if they're provided in a rude or second-rate manner, that's still better than being told that you're ungrateful and you're not welcome here anymore.
Right.
So, but I
Right.
think if we took somebody from a situation, we talked about the building manager at City Hall. I think he would. Let's not say it's dishonest. Let's say it's spin. He would be like, I was really pleased with the food they provided me, and when I went to City Team, I thought it was just great. The camaraderie we
not this
experienced
guy.
spending
Not this
$5.
guy.
I think it's important.
This
to note-
guy's pretty. He has his beliefs, but he's also open to new information. And I believe that we could change his opinion about that if there's something that he experienced personally. But he's been very removed from this. He's 15 years back on the police force. He was asking me these questions. He was asking me to tell him, why wouldn't I feel comfortable in a shelter? What is the difference? And I'm not saying that you can't go to a shelter. I'm not saying that shelters are all bad.
Start shooting their ass.
I'm saying
I'm sorry. not to
I'm
interrupt.
I'm
Start
saying
shooting. Just start getting rid of it. I'm done.
what?
That interrupts. That just makes me fucking sick. I'm sorry. I'm drunk in solidarity.
He's asking questions. It's a start, okay?
Well,
People start from a bigoted perspective, an uneducated perspective. He's actually working on trying to change that a little bit.
I
So
think that
I think we should take him up on that.
I think the idea of inviting him to stay the night in a shelter would be sort of like an incomplete, biased survey. And I
Yeah.
say that because
He knows he's going
being a
somewhere wrong.
tourist in that sort of situation is very different than having to deal with it day
Yeah.
in, day out, and letting it take its daily, exacting, soul-crushing toll
Yeah, you're
on your
right.
life.
You're right.
Somebody can act super flamboyantly gay. That doesn't mean for a day, and see how people treat them differently. That's not going to give them any insight into what it's like to be me.
Right,
Yeah.
because they are actually going to know that they can have this end at any moment.
Right.
And that in itself is a total mindfuck to know
Yes.
that if you can't.
It reminds me of that Touched by an Angel episode when Monica was facing. I love Touched by
Okay,
an
come here,
Angel. I'm
come
sorry.
here, Tequila.
No,
Of all the
no,
references,
I know Touched by an Angel. Touched by an Angel was awesome. I don't know. It was. It is. Touched by an Angel is awesome.
I used to
Okay.
crush Roma Downey.
Hold the candle.
Oh, whatever.
I did.
Don't drop
There's
the
a
candle.
light.
Really?
Tequila
Oh,
said
okay.
that he's drunk in solidarity. So in solidarity
It
with people
actually
who
is
are drunk.
solidarity. They don't see me intoxicated that much. But I will tell you like this. It's like that episode Touched by an Angel when Monica was like, what you trying to explain, Ben, when I said when Monica was it was a it was a hanging in this little town, and Monica the angel, she comes down and she's like, oh my God, I don't see the difference. She didn't know. So what? God made her black. Okay, so when she's in the little woods area in the episode, she's in the woods. The people who hung the black man was chasing after her. Now she goes right between. She's running and running and running. And Monica, the white angel, but she's black now. She's running and running. She goes behind a tree and she's like, God, Lord, Lord, please make me white. Please make me white. white again. She, you know, it was just hit dead on, and he made her white again, and they knew, oh well, this white lady, why she's in there, but just for quickly for her to seek and just rub it off. I mean, she didn't know, but she said, please, but she knows how better it felt. But someone just said, "Oh, I'm going to go spend a night in a shelter," or like a CEO on a TV show saying, "Oh, I'm going to spend a day and be like the employments." They don't know jack shit. Let's put it this way: cut your fucking paycheck for like 5, 6, 7, 8 years and live like that. And then maybe you'll have a little idea. That's all it was.
Yeah, I would invite anyone to look up.
Yeah,
There's a
that's all
certain
right. I
video
love
on
you.
YouTube called the
Uh,
Angry Eye
That's
Experiment, which
The
was done by
angry
a
eye
school teacher,
experiment.
which is really cool. And of course that deals more with racial prejudice, and I'm not trying to
Oh
draw
no,
too many.
oh no, I wasn't saying racism. Oh,
Yeah,
but
I'm
my
not trying
thing
to draw
about
too many
please
parallels
white, but
between this.
please make me back in my comfortable
Right.
home. Please
Yeah,
make,
my
that's I wasn't
situation.
saying about a racist
Right.
Yeah, I know,
product.
but
Yeah.
but
Okay.
playing off of that on
Yeah, there's an
another.
analogy. They're not the same, but there's a
But
certainly
it's
a
saying the
connection.
same analogy. Yeah, same analogy, not racism. No, oh God, can we get over this, please? 20
Yeah.
years from now, we'll be over it. Hopefully.
25.
Mostly.
Beautiful. I would like to see
So,
10. All right,
what
so
tequila being here drunk in solidarity brings up another way that we houseless people are marginalized. It's like it's presumed if you're houseless, you can't, you ought not be going out to have a drink with your friends. In some places, there's sobriety testing. I think I was actually told today when I talked to whatever the staff people, the case management people, that everybody at Doreen's place or any of the TPI programs is subject to random breathalyzing.
Well, you never.
And it's really just not fair that a person who's not in treatment for alcoholism can't go from 7 to 8 and have wine or beer. And if they come back and they're breathalyzed, they're considered unfit for shelter. It's a ridiculous double standard. I understand there's reasons dealing with substance abuse and drunk and disorderly behavior, but if somebody's drunk and disorderly, you deal with that. You don't stigmatize a group of people.
Yeah, I feel like there's an interesting thing to look at there too, which is where one form of oppression is used to like further stigmatize another form of oppression. Like for instance, like when we're talking about a group who's looked down upon, like the houseless population, the sort of like powers that be will use the pre-stigmatization of groups like addicts and the mentally ill and like various different other groups of folks, like people who had to run away from home because of like abusive situations and things like that. They'll use the stigmatization of those, which is totally unfair, and then use that to sort of like label the houseless population as being like unfit or unworthy to care about.
blaming the victim.
Yeah, blaming the victim, but blaming the victim on the basis of things that shouldn't have blame attached to them anyway.
Right.
So it's like
Right.
reinforcing one thing with another. That's totally unfair.
Yeah, because
Right.
because anyone, I'm sorry, I'm just gotta scoot in, just in case, I'm a little intoxicated in solidarity, but it's what, a Friday night?
It is a Friday night.
And
In solidarity
Saturday
with
It's
Friday.
Saturday morning. I haven't slept in 48 hours. I really haven't. It wasn't over. They're just overworked and overkill for movement building. And I'll probably get drunk honestly, maybe once a month. So, what he was saying, it is true. I'm not an alcoholic and I'm not a drug addict. I'm just, honestly, relaxing.
Right. So apply the standards
just
that you
had
do to somebody
take
who
leave
has
out,
a roof over their
you know?
head. I kind of wonder,
just-
like when somebody is denied shelter because they sometimes do drugs or intoxicated or whatnot, does that mean that I go to somebody who has a house and take that away from them? I think that would be a fair standard.
Right.
Sorry, you can't sleep in your house tonight, sir, because you are drunk.
Right.
I mean, this is a complete double standard, and also shelters and other solutions like that. If we're talking about human warehousing, this temporary emergency situation, where you just have to take what you get, you have to follow these rules. and you try not to piss off anybody who's, even though they're being rude or whatever happens.
Right.
And some of these people who are attending these are very good people, and I don't want to take away from the good souls doing this. They're also getting paid, so they have a job doing this, so we can expect things from them like common courtesy and so forth, and training and stuff. So there's that. But there's also volunteers, there's also people doing this. So I don't want to categorize them as evil people or anything. But systemically, what you've got is a shelter, this warehousing emergency situation, and then the question, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how how to not have this double standard that that is what people deserve and they can't ask for more, when quality of life, it sorry, it's okay. Quality of life is more than just survival, and it's necessary to have some quality of life in order to not be sick and angry
Right.
and exhausted and so forth. You can't have everything be survival. If your life is 100% survival, you're a screwed up individual. Which is why I tell people to give people a break when they say, "Well, if you were trying harder, you shouldn't be spending money on cigarettes." I'm like, "Look, this is a small thing that is not about survival during the day. How about a person can have some things that are not about survival? Is that okay with you? You judgmental person? Come on."
Well, I think that harkens back to uh, sort of like this victim blaming mentality, which we've talked about, but I think what we haven't really gotten at is its counterpart, which is sort of like this like bootstrap myth that everyone who has resources or has like wealth deserves it. And I think we all know by now that
Yeah.
that's certainly
Twinkle
not the case.
fingers from like
So if we
three,
can all
four
agree that
people
like
right here.
not everyone who has wealth deserves it, or maybe everyone deserves wealth but hasn't earned it, then we can certainly also agree, using that same logic, that everyone who doesn't have wealth doesn't necessarily deserve that situation either. And so like there's this mentality where people want to believe that they've earned everything that they have, without acknowledging just the random amount of like extraordinary luck that goes into having a quote successful life.
Right, because one thing happens and you can be
Well,
falling down the rabbit
and a
hole.
lot of that's decided
fast.
at birth. If you're the baby of a woman who's a heroin junkie, if you are like if you happen to be African American, if you happen to be queer, if you happen to be a person with like mental health issues, like all of that stuff is a deck being stacked against you, while other people have the whole thing of stacking their favor. Donald Trump has declared bankruptcy 2 times and was born with millions of dollars. If he were born into any other family, he'd be right out here on the street with us. Maybe not with us, but he'd be on the street.
Right. That's really funny.
And Madonna's older child, the granddaughter, when she was 13 years old, she got a credit card for $30,000 a month. Kiss my fucking ass. I remember that one. Fuck you. It's
Madonna,
true.
not our viewers. We love you.
No, I love Madonna, but your daughter giving her a $30,000 credit card limit a month. Fuck you too. I still love your music, but fuck you.
You're older.
Did you
And I
flip
went to
off
your
with your
concert.
first finger?
It's just a
I
really
think-
big middle finger.
Okay. I thought first finger would be cool.
What? Oh.
Try it.
You did a third grade thing of like your ring finger.
No,
Oh, yeah, the
$30,000.
third
She had
grade,
a,
that's
she
right.
had a credit card for
It's not my middle
$30,000.
finger.
What a normal a normal family? I mean,
Yeah, that's a year in
lower
the salary.
paying- Yeah, that's a year in the salary she gets in a month. What she did at 13.
Goodness gracious.
Like you said, I mean, that really struck a cue when you said who deserved wealth and all
Right.
But I do want to give props to Madonna's music because I'm a huge fan, especially the later stuff. So anyway, just want to say, grew up with her.
I'm more of a Blondie person myself.
I love you, Madonna.
Mad props to Madonna as well.
Don't like your ways.
Don't like your ways.
There-
I
there's
if
sort
I
of
were
this-
producing a show, I would have a Madonna song off of Ray of Light fade out right now.
You know what? You should really do one night. Mary, like take a trip down. I mean, I will go with you. Go to take a trip down Burnside where people's sleeping on the street without the security and see how they're sleeping.
You
That
know, I
would-
can now because I'm not hooked to the Wi-Fi anymore. Before I was tethered.
I mean, you could go, or anyone could go. Oh, trust me, if I'm
So,
me,
I'm about ready to go to sleep.
oh, right
yeah.
now. Oh no, it won't be tonight.
Yeah, we could do that. Hey, you guys want to say hi to Vigil TV?
Hey, Visual TV. What's up?
They don't get $30,000 in money credit cards. They're not important. No, fuck no.
It's Madonna's
Yeah.
daughter
13, when she was 13.
when
Now
she was
she's
13.
I can use a leg
So
up like
anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up because this is tiring. Oh yeah, I'm gonna freak out. I'm having seizures at that sign. What is wrong with me? Astrid, no, not Astrid. Loran is going to do that to me all the time, in a really crazy way. She's gonna be like this, at me until I'm desensitized, because it freaks me out when I see one person doing it. Like shortly, I'm okay,
Right.
because I get the signal. But my friends all like at me, and I'm like, whoa,
Well, like,
yikes,
that was-
dude.
originally that sign was supposed to mean like you're repeating yourself, like for the sake of time, let's move forward. But it's sort of like evolved into this like, fuck you, I don't care what you have to say, like shut up sign. Which is,
Well, this was
Not okay.
this was a move on to the next subject. Discuss this yourself, and I understand that, but I'm totally freaked out. Like I have always freaked
it's
out when
done
I see
so
that.
aggressively, you know. Like,
Yeah,
if it's
let's
just like,
mellow-
hey, then- but-
Mellow on the
right.
symbol.
Even direct responses have gone from this kind of thing to like a.
Yeah, and
That's
nobody
not
seems to
okay.
understand the factual response
Yeah.
part. Anyway,
Direct response. That guy's a dick.
yeah.
Celebrate
I think that's a good closer.
holiday.
I do
That's a
too.
closer.
Holiday. It will be all right.
Alright.
Okay, love you guys. Bye. We're gonna come back.
Love you.
We're gonna come back soon.